Welcome back about a new tutorial about Reason, and this tutorial is going to be about everything about mastering and how to do all the different equalizer tweaks and all that kind of stuff. This is another program I'm actually in. This is called a waveform editor, where you can also load up wave files and generate wave files. This thing is actually a generated sinus wave, and this thing is being made on 400 Hertz, so to speak. And that thing sounds like this. It's just a single beep. The reason why I actually had loaded this thing up is I want to point out a certain thing, and that is at the bottom of the Reason rack, where you have an option that is called audio out clipping. What is audio out clipping? Well, it's simple. Audio out clipping means there is a level that is called the 0 dB level, which is like everything is in harmonic sync. All the sounds are not being overdubbed, either being distorted, and that's where the 0 dB line comes in, because this is actually the 0 dB line, like the top and the bottom, that part. If you're going to cross the 0 dB line, distortion will appear and this thing will be turned on. That's the audio clipping sign. One way to demonstrate this on one part is if I'm going to grab a really crowded section over here, like this. There. That's the audio clipping for you. In that case, it will start to light up. Why does it light up? Well, it's really simple in a way to explain this part using this program over here, because now we have ourselves a really monotonic sinus wave, which sounds like a rather normal thing. But one thing that we can do is normalize this thing, making it harder, so to speak. We're going to go over the 0 dB level like this. We're going to park this thing on 4 and watch what happens. This thing becomes more like a square wave. And it even sounds more like a square wave. That's what distortion does for you, and that's also one of the things that audio clipping does do for you. To actually demonstrate this really easy inside of Reason, well, that's really simple. We are going to drag in a subtractor. We're going to park this thing on a sinus wave like that. We're going to overdo the settings. I mean, we're going to really crank this system up like this. And in this case it will not be noticeable because the mastering chute is in there, and that's also one of the big nasty parts in this part, because a mastering chute always has a compressor, and that compressor is actually getting rid of all the 0 dB levels, so to speak. But in this case you will notice what will actually happen. The audio clipping over here goes nuts like mad. There. And this thing should actually be a sinus wave. But if you would ask me, that thing sounds more like a square wave. But due to the fact that we can also apply a mastering chute over here, which is really nice, because most people think like, okay, there's an audio clipping sign. Well, I don't have this problem, because I'm just going to load up a mastering chute and a compressor in there, and my problem is gone. Yes, correct. But you still have the problem that this thing is going to be way too loud, because that thing is going to be peaked at the maximum, crossing the 0 dB line, so to speak. So the best way to actually create your songs is not using this mastering chute to begin with. The first thing you should do is create your song without the mastering chute, and at the end bypass or get this system inside of the Reason rack, and then use the mastering chute to make the final changes. Because in that case, if this audio out clipping is starting to push or is being triggered, then you know there is something wrong inside of your song. And this is the problem that most of the guys have with Reason. I have been saying this like 100 times, and people don't really care about it. Well, anyways, that was the whole side part behind that part, because there was also another problem with this whole technique. Some people actually do it like this. We delete this device, we're going to bring in a redrum computer, and we're going to bring in a really heavy bass. And this bass is going to be a bell drum, like that. We're going to park in the drum over here. We're going to reduce the volume over here. And we're going to bring in a NNXT. There. And we're going to drag in a... let's take a combo, an extra, and a super string. Check. Because this is also one of the problems you're going to come across with if you're going to cross the 0 dB line, because the whole system becomes too crowded in a way. There are even songs that are well, really popular songs, and there are even songs that are so popular that they were even built wrong in a way, technically speaking. We're going to park in a string session over here like this, and most of the guys that actually make a bass drum think like, okay, we have a bass drum and I want to have this bassier. Well, the only thing they do is drag in an equalizer, and we want to make it bassier, so why not crank up the whole system over here? The lower frequencies are the basses, so we're going to reduce or increase, the bass lines like that, because in this case this thing sounds more bassier. Yeah, true, but here's another problem we're going to cross. The superstring over here is not going to be noticeable as soon as we're going to bring in our compressor over here. Watch what happens. Each time the bass drum is being played, the string just drops. It goes like on, off, on, off, on, off, because the whole, well, sound effect, so to speak, becomes way too crowded in a way, because you're crossing the 0 dB level. Well, here's the thing that is one of the solutions. I will not say that it's the solution, but this is just one of them. We're going to bypass this thing over here, and we're not going to increase the lower notes. No, we're going to decrease the middle notes, like this. In this case, the emphasis lies on the lower notes and the higher notes, because that's what the bass drum is all about, but it does not really have that much emphasis on the middle notes. Same thing goes with the superstring. We're going to drag in an additional equalizer like this. We're going to select a frequency band, and we're going to reduce the lower bands like this, because in this case the superstring is not going to be conflicted with our bass drum. So if we're going to play the sequence over here without having the mastering suite over here, we will notice that everything is hunky-dory. The bass drum plays, the string section plays. We can also reduce the volume over here a little bit, like that. And we can also increase the volume a little bit over here, like that. And still the string section is noticeable. It does not drop off. There is no drop off because this thing is not crossing the 0 dB line. So in this case, if we're going to bring in the mastering suite over here, we can even start tweaking our final mix without having any problems. The same thing goes with other devices. If you have, for instance, a piano session going on, for instance, if I'm going to drag in a NNXT over here, and we're going to bring in a piano, bright piano. One of the things that you could do is start playing this thing, drag that thing inside of the sequencer like this. I'm just going to go for a 16 note. 16 note like that. Where did I park the initial note? On C4. Okay, so we're going to use C as a chord. C as a chord, like that. Well, just a short sequence to begin with, like that. And this plays like this. Well, one of the problems you're probably going to have is with the piano being really loud in a way, and the string section is lesser noticeable. One of the things that we could do is tweak the system a little bit by using an equalizer over here and making the middle notes a little bit lesser, like that. Could also go a little bit lower like that. In this case the piano becomes even more sharper. Well, the real big trick to this whole part is actually analyze what you are playing. And one of the ways that you could also do is, one of the tricks that I also showed somewhere in another tutorial, is by dragging in a vocoder unit. That's one thing. And the next thing we're going to do is use a Spider audio merger, like that. And we're going to drag in the master out. That thing is going inside of our Spider unit. This one is going to be our modulator input, and the mastering unit is going to be a part of the Spider as well, like that. And in this case we can visually see what is actually happening inside of the song, like that. So in this case you can visually see where the bands are at. Oh, One minor problem though is there is no numeration like what kind of frequency they are. For that purpose I'm using a thing that is called true RTA.